Let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. I'm not a preacher. I'm not some best-selling author with a fancy suit and $1 million smile. I'm just an old man who's lived a full life. I've walked through heartaches. I've buried friends. I've sat up at night wondering if I did enough. And now, as I sit on my porch with my aching knees and a quiet heart, I can tell you something most folks don't realize until it's too late. If you want to be truly happy in old age, there are 5 things you should start being lazy about right now. I mean it. The lazier you are with these things, the lighter your heart will be when your hair turns gray and your hands start to tremble. You don't have to hustle with every part of life. Sometimes slowing down in the right places is the only way to speed up joy. The first thing to be lazy about is holding grudges. I know, that sounds simple, but it ain't easy. You'll have people wrong you. Friends will betray you. Family will say things they can't take back. Strangers will treat you like you're invisible, and you'll want to hold on to that pain like a badge. You'll replay the moment over and over in your head like some old movie reel. But let me tell you what that really is. That's a heavy sack of rocks you're carrying, and every year you hold that grudge, that sack gets heavier, until one day you wake up and you can't even stand up straight because bitterness has curved your spine. So be lazy about it. Don't chase down every apology. Don't demand justice for every hurt. Just let it be. Forgiveness ain't about saying what they did was okay. It's about saying you're done bleeding for it. I promise you, the sooner you let it go, the lighter you'll feel. And that lightness, that's happiness. The second thing you need to slow down with is trying to fix people. Oh, I know you mean well. You see someone making mistakes. You want to jump in. You want to change them. You want to guide them like a shepherd leading sheep. But here's the truth. Most people don't change because you told them to. They change because life gave them no choice. I used to wear myself thin trying to rescue people who didn't want to be rescued. I gave my time, my energy, my peace, all in the name of love. But love, real love, means letting people take their own journey, even if that journey leads them through fire, especially if it does. So be lazy when it comes to fixing others. Give advice when it's asked for. Be a hand to hold, not a leash to pull. Your peace matters too. And when you stop trying to manage other people's lives, you finally get to start living your own. That's where the joy creeps in. Quiet but steady. The third thing you need to ease up on is worrying about things you can't control. Now listen, this one's a beast. Worry is sneaky. It dresses up like responsibility. Makes you feel like if you don't carry the weight of the world, everything will fall apart. But I'm telling you, most of the stuff we worry about never even happens. And if it does, worrying didn't stop it. It just stole your sleep and your appetite and your laughter before the storm even came. I used to lie in bed thinking about what might happen, what could go wrong, who might leave, what might break. And you know what I missed while I was doing all that? Life. I missed the sound of my kids laughing downstairs. I missed the warmth of my coffee. I missed the damn sunrise. So be lazy about it. When your mind starts racing, tell it to sit down. Let life happen without needing to plan every outcome. Trust that you'll handle it when the time comes. You're stronger than you think. In old age, it's a lot more peaceful when you're not dragging a backpack full of what-ifs into every morning. The fourth thing you'd do well to be lazy about is chasing status. I'm talking about trying to prove your worth. Getting the biggest house, the newest car, the fanciest title at work. Climbing ladders that don't even matter once you're too tired to climb anymore. I spent a lot of years thinking I had to be somebody, that I needed recognition, that I had to make people proud. But at the end of it, when I retired and sat still for the first time in decades, I realized something. None of those plaques on my wall ever held my hand when I was scared. None of those promotions made my grandchildren laugh. I don't remember the raises. I remember my wife dancing barefoot in the kitchen. I remember fishing trips, Sunday dinners, stories shared over firelight. Be lazy about proving yourself. Let the world chase the gold stars. You chase connection, chase meaning, chase stillness. In the end, that's what fills your heart, not your resume. Now, the fifth and maybe most important thing to be lazy about is judging others. You see someone living different from you, talking different, loving different. You feel that itch to comment, to criticize, to distance yourself. But let me tell you, I've met saints in bars and liars in churches. You don't know someone's story just because you saw a piece of it. And judging folks? It builds walls. It turns neighbors into strangers. It leaves you lonely in a world full of people. I used to think my way was the right way, that everyone else just didn't get it. But now I see. Life is too short to play gatekeeper, so be lazy about it. Let people be. Be curious instead of critical. Ask questions instead of making assumptions. When you approach others with kindness, you get kindness back. And nothing feels better in old age than being surrounded by people who feel safe with you, who want to sit beside you, who love you not because you're perfect, but because you made them feel like they mattered. So there you have it. 5 places where laziness is not a sin, but a blessing. 5 areas of life where slowing down means speeding up your joy. Let go of grudges. Stop trying to fix everyone. Worry less about things you can't control. Quit chasing approval and drop the habit of judging others. Do these things and I promise, when you reach the back half of life, you'll feel lighter, freer, happier. Not because you did everything right, but because you finally learned that some battles ain't worth fighting, some weights ain't worth carrying, and some peace only comes when you stop running. I'm not telling you to stop caring. I'm telling you to care better, wiser, softer. I'm telling you that your energy is sacred and your time is short. Spend it where it counts. Don't waste it chasing pain. Don't spend it trying to be everything to everyone. Don't pour it into proving your worth when your worth was never in question. Sit with people who make you laugh. Eat slowly. Walk barefoot sometimes. Hug longer than you need to. Cry when it comes and don't apologize for it. Forgive more than you think you should. And for the love of all that's holy, take naps. Good, long, sweet naps. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. Hurt people I didn't mean to. Missed chances because I was too scared or too proud. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Happiness in old age doesn't come from what you achieve. It comes from what you let go of. And the earlier you start letting go, the longer you get to enjoy the freedom that follows. Be lazy where it counts. You'll be glad you did. Now let's clear some common questions. How has judging others made you feel safer or more certain? And at what relational cost? Let me sit you down for a moment and talk to you like a man who's lived through a good chunk of years. I've seen the sun rise on many mornings and set on just as many dreams. And I can tell you something with the kind of clarity that only comes from time. There was a season in my life when I judged people easily, too easily. I'd look at how someone dressed, how they talked, who they loved, how they voted, how they worshiped or didn't, and I'd put them in a box in my mind. It felt like I was doing something smart, like I was organizing the world into categories I could understand. This one's decent, that one's lost. This one's trying, that one's dangerous. I thought I was being cautious, careful, maybe even wise. What I didn't realize was that I was building walls around myself, brick by brick. Every judgment was another stone keeping people out. And sure, it made me feel safer for a while, more certain, like I understood the rules of the world. But the cost? The cost came later, and it came heavy. When you judge others, you trick yourself into thinking you're in control, that you've got it figured out. It makes the world feel smaller, and smaller can feel more manageable. You don't have to wrestle with the unknown. You don't have to question your own beliefs. You don't have to stretch your heart to include people who make you uncomfortable. You just slap a label on someone and move on. It's neat, it's tidy, but life, real life, isn't neat. People aren't meant to be folded and filed away. And every time I judge someone, I shut the door on who they really were. I never got to see the full story. I never let them surprise me. And more than that, I made myself lonely without even realizing it. Let me tell you about this man I used to work with back in my 30s. We didn't have much in common. He kept to himself, wore clothes that were always a little too loud for the office, played strange music at his desk. I figured he was arrogant, too proud to make friends. So I kept my distance, judged him quietly. A few years went by like that. Then one afternoon, I saw him sitting alone in the cafeteria, staring out the window with this look I recognized all too well. It was the look of someone carrying something heavy. Against my own expectations, I sat next to him. We started talking. Turned out he was taking care of his mother with Alzheimer's. He came to work early so he could leave early to feed her dinner. Those loud clothes, they were hand-me-downs from his brother who had passed, and wearing them was his way of holding on. That strange music, it was something his mother used to sing when her mind was still clear. I sat there stunned. Here was a man I thought I understood, but I hadn't known a thing about him. I felt ashamed. And more than that, I felt heartbroken for all the time I'd wasted keeping him out. That's the cost right there. The missed connections, the friendships that never took root, the love that never had a chance to bloom. When you judge, you don't just hurt the other person. You hurt yourself. You cut off pieces of the human experience. And you start living in a world that's smaller, colder, and lonelier than it has to be. I've spent decades unlearning that habit. And let me tell you, it doesn't go away overnight. But every time I feel that old urge to label someone, I remind myself that I don't know what battles they're fighting. I don't know what kind of pain they're carrying. And if I judge them too quickly, I'll miss the chance to know them at all. Now, I'll be honest with you. Judging others gave me a certain kind of comfort for a long time. Made me feel like I was better, more stable, more right. It gave me a false sense of superiority, like I was standing on solid ground while everyone else was stumbling. But that's just ego. That's fear dressing up like confidence. The truth is, I was scared. Scared that if I opened my heart too wide, I'd get hurt. That if I let in too many different kinds of people, I'd lose myself. But it's the opposite. The more people I truly let in, the more I found myself in their stories. I saw pieces of my own struggle reflected back at me in the lives of people I never thought I could relate to. And that made me feel less alone. There's something sacred about letting people surprise you, about listening instead of labeling, about asking questions instead of assuming answers. It takes courage to stay curious, especially when judgment is quicker and easier. But easy doesn't mean better. If I could go back and talk to my younger self, I'd tell him this. Don't be so quick to draw lines in the sand. You'll only end up standing alone on one side. Walk across, sit with people, break bread, share silence. Let them tell you who they are instead of deciding for them. That's where the good stuff is. That's where the healing happens. Now that I'm older, I care more about connection than being right. I care more about kindness than being understood. And I care more about listening than being heard. That shift didn't come easy. It came after years of missed chances and quiet regrets. But it came, and I'm thankful for it. Because now when I sit on this porch and look back at my life, the moments I cherish most are the ones where I let my guard down, where I reached out instead of recoiled, where I chose compassion over certainty. Judging others might make you feel safe for a while, but safety without connection is just another kind of prison. So if you're asking me how judging others made me feel safer, I'll tell you this. It gave me comfort. It gave me structure, but it also gave me distance. It gave me isolation, and it took away opportunities for love and friendship that I can't get back. But if you're lucky enough to be asking this question now, then you've still got time to change that. Start today. Start small. Just notice the next time you're about to judge someone. Pause. Ask yourself what fear is hiding underneath that judgment. Then let yourself be curious instead. Let yourself be kind. You'll be surprised how much lighter your heart feels when you stop trying to be certain and start trying to be present. That's the kind of peace worth chasing, especially in old age. What might change if you replace judgment with curiosity, especially toward people who think and live differently than you? I've been walking this earth a long time, long enough to see how quickly the world changes and how slowly some hearts catch up. And if there's one truth I've come to hold tightly, it's this. Judging others builds fences, but curiosity builds bridges. And let me tell you, the older I get, the more I realize that what we need are not more fences, but more bridges. I spent a good part of my younger years sizing people up before I even heard them speak. Maybe it was how they looked. Maybe it was how they voted. Maybe it was the way they raised their kids or the kind of music they blasted in the car next to mine. I'd write them off in a blink. I thought I was just being wise. I thought I was protecting myself. What I was really doing was closing doors, shutting out the very kind of people who might have changed me, who might have taught me something I couldn't have learned any other way, But something started to shift as the decades rolled on. Maybe it was the quiet that comes when your house empties out. Maybe it was losing people I thought I'd have forever. Maybe it was just sitting with myself long enough to see the patterns in my own behavior. Whatever it was, it woke me up. I started to wonder, what if, instead of making assumptions, I asked questions? What if, instead of thinking I knew who someone was, I tried to understand why they are the way they are? I'll tell you what changed. Everything. There was this young man who moved into the house down the street a few years ago, covered in tattoos, hair dyed blue, drove some old car that rattled so loud you could hear it coming before you saw it. I'd glance at him from my porch and make my mind up. Lazy, trouble, probably into all sorts of things. Didn't belong in this quiet old neighborhood. Then one day I saw him kneeling in the front yard, helping a stray cat that looked half dead. He cradled it like a baby, took it inside. A few days later, I saw him putting out bowls of water on the sidewalk for dogs on hot days. So I got curious. Walked over one afternoon, introduced myself. He smiled, told me his name, said he was a vet tech at the animal hospital, worked nights, took care of abandoned animals when no one else would. We stood there talking for nearly an hour, and I walked away realizing how wrong I'd been, how shallow my judgment was. That conversation opened something in me. I started seeing people differently, not through the lens of what made them different, but through the lens of what made them human. Curiosity softens your heart. It keeps you young in the best way. When you stay curious, you stay teachable. And when you're teachable, you keep growing. Judging people stops that growth. It freezes your heart in place. And let me tell you, a frozen heart in an aging body is a dangerous thing. It keeps you rigid, keeps you lonely, makes you bitter. But a curious heart, that one stays warm. It invites people in. It turns strangers into friends. I've sat on park benches and talked to people half my age with completely different beliefs. I've shared coffee with someone who didn't speak my language, and still, somehow, we understood each other. Because I stopped needing to be right. I stopped needing to be above. I started wanting to connect. And here's the funny part. The more curious I became, the more I discovered how much we all have in common. We all carry grief. We all have stories that shaped us. We all want to be seen. Underneath the clothes and accents and politics and habits, we all bleed the same way. We all laugh the same way. I've had more in common with people who look nothing like me than I ever did with some who looked exactly like me. That's the power of curiosity. It pulls you closer. It removes fear. It brings light into the dark corners of your assumptions. Now, I'm not saying curiosity is always comfortable. It's not. Sometimes you hear things you don't agree with. Sometimes you have to face parts of yourself you don't like. Sometimes you realize that your beliefs were handed to you like an old coat, and you never once thought to try on anything else. But it's worth it every time. Because that discomfort, that's just growth knocking on your door. And the relationships you build when you lead with curiosity, they're richer, deeper, more real. When someone feels like you genuinely want to understand them, not fix them, not correct them, but simply understand, they open up. And you get to see the whole picture, not just the snapshot you first judged. I've sat across tables from people who believe everything opposite of what I do and still walked away with a full heart. Because I listened, I asked questions. I didn't try to win, I just tried to see. So what might change if you replace judgment with curiosity? You might find yourself laughing with someone you thought you'd never relate to. You might find comfort in unexpected places. You might get to know people in your own family better. You might forgive someone you once wrote off. You might become someone others feel safe around, someone people trust. And maybe most of all, you'll change. You'll feel lighter, freer, more connected to the messy, beautiful fabric of humanity. At this stage in life, I don't have time for shallow relationships. I don't want to waste another minute living in a world divided by fear and assumption. I want to know people. I want to feel their stories ripple through mine. I want to understand before I draw conclusions. And I want others to do the same for me. That's how we grow old with grace, not by clinging to our judgments like shields, but by laying them down and extending our hands. So if you find yourself standing in front of someone who thinks or lives differently than you, don't shrink back. Don't raise your walls. Lean in. Ask a question. Smile. Be curious. Let yourself be surprised. That's where the good stuff is. That's where healing begins. That's where life starts to feel whole. I've learned that curiosity is the soul's way of saying, I'm still open. And as long as you're open, you're still living. Really living. At the end of it all, what will you be most grateful you were lazy about? Grudges, control, status, judgment, or the need to carry the world alone? Let me tell you something I've come to know, not through books or sermons or fancy quotes, but through real living. Through nights I sat alone, mornings I rose with regret, and afternoons filled with quiet joy. You get to a certain age, and suddenly the question starts showing up more often in your thoughts than you expect. What was it all for? What do I truly feel thankful for? And oddly enough, as strange as it might sound, I find myself most grateful for the things I was lazy about. Not lazy in the way the world might call it, not idle or careless, but lazy in that I stopped wasting my strength on battles that didn't need to be fought. When I let myself slow down with certain things, I found peace waiting for me. So when you ask me what I'm most grateful I was lazy about, the answer is clear. I'm grateful I was lazy with grudges, lazy with control, lazy with chasing status, lazy with judging others, and maybe most of all, lazy with carrying the world on my back like it was mine alone to hold. Let's start with grudges. I used to hold on to them like they were medals, proof that I had been wronged and the other person didn't deserve forgiveness. I thought it gave me power. Truth is, it only poisoned me from the inside out. Every time I thought of those old wounds, it was like picking at scabs that had no chance to heal. But one day, after a long talk with a friend I hadn't seen in years, I realized something. Most of the people I was angry at had long stopped thinking about me. They had moved on. It was only me, dragging the weight of old hurt behind me like a sack of bricks. So I started letting go. Not all at once, slowly. I got lazy about holding grudges. I stopped replaying the same story in my head. I stopped needing apologies that were never going to come. And in that laziness, I found relief. I found space in my heart for joy to take root. I didn't forget what had happened, but I stopped letting it own me. And now, sitting here in the calm of my older years, I thank God I didn't spend my final chapters bitter. Then there was control. Lord, did I try to control everything? I wanted my children to make certain choices. I wanted life to follow my plan. I wanted things to go the way I thought they should. And every time they didn't, I'd fight it. I'd push harder, try to bend the river to my will. But all that ever did was make me tired, made me resentful, made me miss what was actually happening because I was too busy wishing it were something else. But over time, I started getting lazy with control. I let people make their own mistakes. I let life teach its lessons. I stopped needing to have the last word. I learned to sit with the unknown and trust that it would unfold in its own way. Funny thing is, once I loosened my grip, life didn't fall apart. It flowed better, and so did I. Now, status. That's a tricky one. When you're younger, it's easy to get pulled into that chase, climbing ladders, earning titles, wanting people to admire you. I played that game. For a while, I thought it mattered. I thought it would fill the gaps inside me. But once I got to a place where I had enough, and trust me, you don't need as much as you think, I started getting lazy with status. I stopped caring about how people saw me. I stopped needing to impress anyone. I wore the same old clothes, drove the same car for years. I let go of needing to be somebody. And in doing that, I started becoming myself. There's a freedom that comes when you no longer need to prove anything. When you can just show up as you are and know that it's enough. Judgment was another thing I used to do without even thinking. It gave me a false sense of security, made me feel like I was right, like I was safe from being like them. But as I aged, I began to notice how small my world had become, how many people I had missed out on knowing because I had already made up my mind about them. So I got lazy about judging. I stopped trying to figure people out before I listened to them. I asked more questions. I stayed curious. And wouldn't you know it, some of the most meaningful connections I've ever made happened after I put down my mental gavel. Now I look at people and think, they've got a story I don't know. And that small thought opens up entire worlds. But maybe the biggest shift came when I stopped trying to carry the world alone. For most of my life, I thought I had to be strong, had to be the rock, had to hold it all together for everyone. I didn't ask for help. I didn't cry where others could see. I thought I was doing the noble thing, but what I was really doing was closing myself off, wearing armor that was far too heavy. Over time, my shoulders started to sag. My spirit grew tired. And then, in my older years, I got lazy. Lazy about being the one who held everything up. I let others take the lead sometimes. I let myself be weak. I asked for help. I let my voice tremble when I spoke. I let the tears fall. And instead of being crushed, I felt held. I realized that I wasn't alone, that I had never needed to be, that letting others carry some of the weight didn't make me weak. It made me human. So now, as I sit here with more years behind me than ahead, I feel thankful. Not for the things I did perfectly, not for the accomplishments on paper, but for the times I chose peace over pride, for the moments I stepped back instead of pushing forward, for the days I let go instead of holding on. I'm grateful I got lazy with the wrong things, because it helped me hold tighter to the right ones. Love, laughter, grace, stillness, presence. You see, life isn't measured by how hard you tried to control it. It's measured by how open your heart was while you lived it. And sometimes the smartest thing you can do is be a little lazy. Let things go. Let people be. Let yourself rest. And in that stillness, you'll find the beauty you've been chasing all along. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel, so until next time, take care.